Senator Roberts.
Thank you. Former Senator Rex Patrick said to me that transparency is a word that's only ever shouted from opposition benches. After years and years of virtue signalling from Labor while they were in opposition about the importance of transparency, of accountability, about the importance of Senate estimates hearings, now that they're in government, it's an entirely different story. Before they were elected to government, we heard endlessly from Labor that the government should be accountable, and one of the ways they should be held accountable is through orders for the production of documents. Labor has resisted voting. It's voted against or refused to comply with almost every order for the production of documents on which this Senate has voted. That same attitude is prolific and has shown up again over 2 weeks of Senate estimates hearings. I've got plenty of criticisms to get into about the Labor Party, yet I've got to ask some of the senators from the Liberals, it's a little rich, don't you think? While you were in government, there were plenty of motions for production of documents and evasiveness at Senate estimates. When it comes to accountability and transparency of government information, unfortunately, the Liberal and Labor are two wings of the same bird. As former Senator Rex Patrick said so accurately, transparency is a word only shouted from the opposition benches. Once in government, it's all quiet. So let's have a look at just some of the transparency that Labor has blocked. Motion number 124, an order for the production of documents to tell the Australian people how much extra Prime Minister Anthony Albanese cost them to call Parliament back for a ridiculous one day of sitting to push his gas industry nationalisation through. It likely cost millions of dollars just so Labor could pull a stunt and claim they were doing something on electricity prices. 6 months later, it's done nothing. Looking good, not doing good. That's what matters to Labor. What was Labor's response to the Senate ordering them to tell Australia how much this exercise had cost? They may as well have just put a middle finger in the envelope. Not $1 in costings, such is the contempt they have for this Senate and for the Australian taxpayers. Let's look at motion number 176. In order to produce documents relating to millions of dollars being paid to political parties for ill-defined grants and programs. What was Labor's answer? Contempt. Not a single document related to the funding produced. Not a single document. What about motion number 200? Just yesterday, documents requested in relation to the MRH-90 helicopter crash in Jervis Bay. Documents that would uncover if we are putting our defence personnel at risk of death flying in dodgy helicopters. The government refused to return a single document. Not a single document. Of course, this culture of secrecy extended to Senate estimates. We saw witnesses tell outright lies to the Senate and the Labor ministers sit by idly. Ministers raised flimsy public interest immunity claims, if they bothered to raise them at all. In the Foreign Affairs, Defence and Trade hearings, Chief of Defence Force General Campbell simply flatly refused to answer questions from myself and from Senator Shoebridge. That's not how Senate estimates works. If a witness does not want to answer a question, they are obliged to take it on notice, and then it is up to the minister to raise a claim of public interest immunity, not the witness. General Campbell knew this. He's attended many estimate sessions. The Labor minister at the table knew this, yet sat there in silence as the witness treated questions with outright contempt. Again, transparency is a word only shouted from the opposition benches. And now we've had two constituents, one from Queensland and one from New South Wales, telling us about specific instances that indicate a senior member of one of the departments lied. So we're chasing that up now with question on notice following Senate estimates. Let's not forget the unanswered questions on notice. Answers to questions on notice were flowing in while the next Senate estimates had already started. Make no mistake, many of these answers were no doubt available, yet they probably sat on the minister's desk waiting for a final sign-off. That's why many of the questions on notice don't arrive in time. Ministers are holding them up. So much for transparency. There's no reason a minister needs to sign off on answers anyway. The truth is the truth. The agency's answer is their evidence. It's their evidence. It's not for the minister to change. None of this will change until the Senate fulfils its duty to bring contempt charges against those who treat it with contempt. It's within our power to enforce accountability. A few contempt charges and a couple of witnesses in jail should send a message to the others.
Senator Rennick.